morning students. Today we will start with our NEET coaching. In today's class I will be dealing with the chapter which is chapter 22 from your first year syllabus, Chemical Coordination and Integration. Okay. Before getting deep into the topic, let me give you a small introduction how NEET exam is conducted. Okay. The full form of NEET is National Eligibility cum Entrance Test. Okay, it's National Eligibility cum Entrance Test. It was previously known as AIPMT. AIPMT is nothing but All India Pre-Medical Test. Okay, now it is renamed as NEET, which we call generally as NEET. So it is an entrance exam specially made for the students who wish to join medical courses and dental courses. Okay, so it is slightly different than your CET because NEET is conducted exclusively for the students who wish to join the medical courses and the dental courses, which is MBBS and BDS. Okay, now what is the exam pattern and structure? In NEET, generally there will be 180 questions asked. Out of 180 questions, 45 questions will be from your physics, 45 questions will be from your chemistry subject, and 90 marks will be allocated for biology. Okay, so biology plays a major role in writing NEET exam because out of 180 questions, 90 questions will be from your biology and 45 questions from physics and 45 chemistry respectively. Now, what is the exam pattern? Now, as I told you, there will be 180 questions and every question carries 4 marks. Okay, every question, all your correct response, each correct response carries 4 marks, and each incorrect response will get you 1 negative marking. Okay, so there will be 4 positive marks for your correct answers and 1 negative marks for your incorrect answers. The exam duration is 3 hours, that is 180 minutes. So you can just relate it. There will be 180 questions which should be answered in the time frame of 180 minutes. So you will get 1 minute for each question. Okay, and as I told you, 180 questions into 4 marks. Every question carries, it will fetch you 4 marks. So the total marks will be 720. Okay, out of the 720 there will be negative marking also. Okay, and negative marking will be 1 mark per incorrect answer. What is the syllabus? Syllabus is nothing but your first and second PUC syllabus, that what you study in class 11 and 12. All your physics, chemistry and biology. Maths is not included for NEET. It will be included for your CET, Common Entrance Test. Now, who conducts this NEET exam, which is the organizing body? The organizing body is NTA, which is National Testing Agency. We know that most of the competitive exams are carried out by NTA. Now, the National Testing Agency is the nodal agency which actually conducts this entrance test known as NEET. Okay. Now, what is the eligibility criteria? How do we crack NEET? Now, candidates belonging to the general category must have scored a minimum of 50% in the qualifying examination. Qualifying examination is your second PUC examination. You should have scored 50% in your second PUC examination. Then you will be eligible to write the NEET exam. Candidates belonging to SC and SC or other backward classes, that is OBC, they will have to score minimum 40% in the qualifying examination. Okay, so this is the eligibility criteria. General category will have to score 50% in the PUC examination. SC, ST and OBC have to score 40% in the PUC examination. Then you will be eligible to take up the NEET exam. Okay, so this is the weightage of marks depending upon your syllabus. So let's begin with, this is class 11th. Okay, that is your first PUC syllabus. If we begin with the unit 1, diversity of living organisms, it has 14% weightage for your NEET exam. And the second unit, structural organization in plants and animals, it has the weightage of 5%. Okay, and third unit, cell structure and function, has a weightage of 9%. The unit 4, plant physiology, has the weightage of 6%. Unit 5, human physiology has a weightage of 20%. Then let's move on to the class 12, that is your second PUC syllabus, the unit 6. Okay, we will begin with unit 6 because in the first year we will be finishing unit 5. The unit 6, which is reproduction, has the weightage of 9%. Unit 7, which is genetics and evolution, has the weightage of 18%. Then the unit 8, biology and human welfare, this is biology and human welfare, it has the weightage of 9%. The unit 9, biotechnology and its applications, has the weightage of 4%. Unit 10, that is ecology and environment, has the weightage of 6%. Why I am giving you the segregation of the total percentage here is because if you have shortage of time, okay, or if you have to clear the NEET syllabus in a very short duration, then you can focus on the units which have higher weightage. Okay, and for example, this human physiology has a weightage of 20%, genetics and evolution has a weightage of 18%. Okay, so you can try to cover these units initially, then you can move on with the other units. Okay, so this is how the marks are not marks, the the percentage of the weightage is distributed depending upon each unit. Okay, this is the general introduction how NEET exam is conducted. Okay, so we know everything about NEET now. It is national eligibility cum entrance test. You know for how many marks it is conducted and how much what is the duration of the examination, what is the syllabus and who conducts the test. Okay, and what is the eligibility criteria? You know the weightage of marks also. Now we will move on with the important topic of your NEET syllabus, which is chemical coordination and integration. Here I have mentioned human physiology has a weightage of 20%. Okay, and today I have taken up this chapter 22nd, which is a part of human physiology unit. Okay, chemical coordination and integration. We will begin with this chapter today. In this chapter, chemical coordination and integration, all that we will be talking is hormones. You have studied it in your first year class. We will be studying a lot about hormones and how hormones are functioning in our body, or how hormones function in our body. As an introduction, we will have to study about endocrine glands and hormones. Okay, what are endocrine glands? There are certain group of cells in our body which actually come together and they behave as endocrine glands. You have already studied it, so I am just giving you a brief introduction. Okay, endocrine glands means there are certain cells in our body which has the capacity to release or secrete something. These cells, they come together and form a gland. Okay, when we talk about endocrine glands, these special cells, they secrete hormones. Okay, when a group of cells come together, they start secreting hormones. Such group of cells or such tissue forms the endocrine glands. Okay, now what are hormones? Hormones are nothing but non-nutrient chemicals which act as intercellular messengers. When I say non-nutrient chemicals, it does not have any nutritional value in our body. However, it acts as intercellular messengers. That means it takes message from one particular part of your cell or one particular part of your body to other part of the body. Okay, that's why we call them as non-nutrient. That means it doesn't have any nutritional value in our body, and it acts as intercellular messenger. Okay, it carries message from one part of your body to the other part of the body, and they are produced in trace amounts. Hormones are not produced in a larger amounts, they are produced in very, very minute quantity. That's why we say trace amounts. Now, in today's class, we will study about the whole human endocrine system. In our body, there are multiple endocrine glands. That means the organ of our body which has the capacity to produce hormones. Okay, so they are known as endocrine glands. Since there are multiple endocrine glands in our body, all these glands come together and it forms a human endocrine system. Multiple endocrine glands come together and forms a endocrine system. Also, apart from endocrine glands, there are special tissue or cells also present in our body which has the capacity to produce hormones. Okay, all together it forms the human endocrine system. So generally we can say any tissue, any cell, any organ of our body which has the capacity to produce hormones, they come under human endocrine system. Okay, let's study about different human endocrine, different endocrine glands that are present in our body. So let's begin with hypothalamus. Okay, before going into hypothalamus, let's see, when we talk about these glands, glands means there are certain organs which are formed as a result of group of many cells. Okay, now there are glands are of three types: endocrine, exocrine and heterocrine. Okay, when we talk about glands, there are three different types of glands: endocrine glands, exocrine glands and heterocrine glands. What are endocrine glands? Endocrine glands are glands which actually release their secretion in a particular duct. Okay, for example, your pancreas is an endocrine gland. Pancreas is releasing insulin. When the insulin is released from the pancreas, the insulin is not passing through any duct, it is directly released into your bloodstream. Okay, when the pancreas releases insulin, insulin is directly released into your bloodstream. It does not pass through any specific ducts. Okay, such particular glands are known as endocrine glands. So if let's read the explanation. Endocrine glands release their secretion directly into the blood without any duct. Okay, generally endocrine glands are known as ductless glands. That means they don't have any duct. When they release a hormone, the hormones are directly released into the bloodstream. Then comes the exocrine glands. Okay, this is the second type of glands. They release their secretion with the help of a duct. Okay, so there is a passage system which actually carries their secretion. Such glands are known as exocrine glands. Example is salivary gland. When the salivary glands produce saliva, the saliva passes through the salivary duct. Okay, there is a duct which carries the secretion. Here, there is no duct, a specific duct in order to carry the secretion. Directly the secretion is released into the bloodstream. Here in case of exocrine glands, there are ducts. When a particular organ of your body releases something, that material is carried through a duct or a particular system and then it mixes with your bloodstream. Then comes your heterocrine glands. Heterocrine glands are the special types of glands which acts as both endocrine and exocrine. For example, pancreas. Pancreas is one such organ of our body which has the capacity to act as an endocrine gland as well as exocrine gland. How? Pancreas, it releases insulin, so it acts as endocrine gland. It releases pancreatic juice, so it acts as exocrine gland. Okay, so pancreas has the capacity to act or behave both as endocrine as well as exocrine gland. It releases hormone as well as it releases pancreatic juice. So it can act as a heterocrine gland. Okay, let's begin with the first endocrine gland, which is a very important endocrine gland of our body, hypothalamus. Initially, we will have to study where is hypothalamus located. Hypothalamus is located in the forebrain. Okay, so our brain can be segregated into three regions: forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain or hindbrain. So this hypothalamus is generally found in the forebrain region. Okay, it is a basal part of diencephalon. Diencephalon is a part of your forebrain. Okay, now it controls many body functions. Now, how it acts as an endocrine gland? Hypothalamus generally, when we think about hypothalamus, it is a part of our brain. So we will think it is somewhere related to our nervous system. However, being a part of nervous system, it also acts as a endocrine gland. That means it releases certain hormones. Okay, hypothalamus, apart from acting as a major part of nervous system, it also releases some hormones, so it is also referred as endocrine gland. Okay. Now, which part of the hypothalamus actually releases hormones? There are special cells in hypothalamus known as neurosecretory cells. These neurosecretory cells actually produce hormones. Okay. So there are special cells in the hypothalamus known as neurosecretory cells which actually produce hormones. Now, these hormones actually, the hormones of hypothalamus, they do not take any direct action in our body. However, they always control the action of pituitary hormones. Okay, it's a point to remember that the hypothalamus is a part of our brain. It releases hormones. These hormones actually always controls the secretion of pituitary hormones. Okay, in our body we have one more endocrine gland known as pituitary gland. The function of pituitary gland is controlled by hypothalamus. Okay, the hormones secreted by hypothalamus can be classified into two types. The first one is releasing hormones. The second type is inhibiting hormones. Okay, the releasing hormones released by hypothalamus, actually they help in the release of pituitary hormones. I told you hypothalamus is one such organ or one such gland which actually controls the pituitary gland. So, the hormones released by the hypothalamus is going to decide whether the pituitary gland has to secrete the hormone or it has to stop the secretion of hormones. Okay, so the releasing hormones are the hormones which actually stimulates the secretion of pituitary hormones, whereas the inhibiting hormones are the hormones which actually inhibits the secretion of pituitary hormones. When these hormones are secreted and sent to the pituitary gland, the pituitary gland will stop producing their hormones. However, whereas these hormones are produced by the hypothalamus, if they reach the pituitary gland, then they will increase the secretion of pituitary hormones. Okay, if we have to talk about example, GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone, is a hormone produced by hypothalamus. Okay, GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone, is a hormone produced by hypothalamus. When this hormone is released from the hypothalamus, it goes to the pituitary gland and it will allow the release of gonadotropins from the pituitary gland. Okay, when these hormones are released from the hypothalamus, gonadotropin releasing hormones go to the pituitary gland and it will allow the release of gonadotropins. Okay, gonadotropins are nothing but the hormones secreted by the gonads, that is testes and ovary. Then, if we have to take an example for inhibiting hormones, there is a hormone released by hypothalamus known as somatostatin. Okay, this somatostatin actually goes and inhibits the release of growth hormones from the pituitary. Okay, so there are two different types of hypothalamic hormones: releasing hormone, inhibiting hormones. When the releasing hormones are produced by the hypothalamus, it goes to the pituitary gland. It allows the release of pituitary hormones. When the hypothalamus produces the inhibiting hormone, it goes to the pituitary gland and it inhibits or stops the release of pituitary hormones. Okay, so this is the speciality of hypothalamic hormones. Let's talk about the pituitary gland. We will have to note here that pituitary gland is also known as master gland, because all our body activity is controlled by this particular gland known as pituitary gland. It releases several hormones in our body. Where is it located? It is located in the forebrain itself. It is attached to the hypothalamus by a stalk. Okay, it is present in our forebrain. It is attached to the hypothalamus. Now, in our brain, pituitary gland is located in a bony cavity. There is a bony cavity in our brain, inside which this pituitary gland is located. That bony cavity is known as sella turcica. Okay, sella turcica is a bony cavity in which the pituitary gland is located. Now, pituitary gland has two regions. If you take the anatomy, if you study the anatomy of a pituitary gland, it is a very small gland. It is divided into two parts. The first part is known as adenohypophysis. The second part is known as neurohypophysis. To be specific, the anterior part of the pituitary gland is known as adenohypophysis. The posterior part of the pituitary is known as neurohypophysis. Okay, let's study about adenohypophysis initially. Adenohypophysis in turn is divided into two more parts. It is known as pars distalis and pars intermedia. Okay, the pituitary gland, anatomically we can divide the pituitary gland into adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis. Adenohypophysis consists of two portions, pars distalis and pars intermedia. Okay, so this adenohypophysis is nothing but the anterior pituitary. Okay, and neurohypophysis is the posterior pituitary. Okay, with reference to its location with the hypothalamus, we can call them as anterior or the posterior end of pituitary. Now, here we will talk about pars distalis. Generally, they are also a part of anterior pituitary. Let's study about this. This is very important for your NEET exam. We will have to know about different hormones secreted by different glands. Okay, from hypothalamus we have known that there are two different types of hormones produced by hypothalamus, known as releasing hormones and inhibiting hormones. Let's talk about pituitary. The pars distalis part of pituitary produces 6 hormones, okay, which are nothing but luteinizing hormone. Okay, you have studied in your classrooms. Luteinizing hormone, which is known as LH, follicle stimulating hormone, which is known as FSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, which is known as TSH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, which is known as ACTH, prolactin, which is known as PRL. Okay, these are the growth hormone, which is known as GH. These are the 6 different types of hormones produced by pars distalis region of the pituitary gland. Okay, pituitary gland has two parts majorly, adenohypophysis, neurohypophysis. Adenohypophysis is further divided into pars distalis and pars intermedia. Pars distalis, only this part of the pituitary gland produces these 6 hormones: LH, FSH, GH, PRL, TSH and ACTH. These are the different hormones produced by pars distalis region. And what are the hormones produced by pars intermedia? Before that, we will have to know the actions of all these different hormones. Let's begin with growth hormone. Okay, this is the first very important hormone produced by your pars distalis region of the pituitary gland. Growth hormone, then the prolactin, then the thyroid stimulating hormone TSH, adrenocorticotropic hormone ACTH, luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. Okay, let's begin with growth hormone. I have mentioned all the 6 hormones here. Okay, growth hormones, as the name itself indicates, this hormone is responsible for the growth of a particular individual. Okay, now if the growth hormone is secreted in a larger amount, then the person's growth will be abundant. Okay, it will be more. If the growth hormone is produced in a person's body in a smaller amount, then the growth will be retarded. Okay, over secretion of GH, growth hormone, name itself indicates it is responsible for the growth of an individual. If it is over secreted, it will lead to gigantism. Okay, gigantism means a person will be very tall and very fat. That is known as gigantism. If the hormone is secreted in a lower level, then it will result in stunted growth. Stunted growth means the growth will be stunted, or it will be lesser when compared to other individuals. This condition is known as dwarfism. Okay, few people you have seen, they grow gigantically or very tall and very fat. That condition is known as gigantism. Few people will be very short when compared to other normal individual. That is known as dwarfism. Okay, this is controlled by growth hormone. It has to be produced in a optimum level. Then the second hormone produced by pars distalis region of your pituitary gland is prolactin. Prolactin, the name itself indicates lactin, something has to do with the milk. Okay, so it helps the growth of the mammary gland in a female and formation of milk in them. Okay, this function is controlled by this hormone known as prolactin. Then the next hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, the name itself indicates it is a hormone which stimulates thyroid gland. Okay, thyroid stimulating hormone, it is a hormone which stimulates the thyroid gland. That means it will ask the thyroid glands to produce certain hormones. It stimulates the synthesis and secretion of thyroid hormones from the thyroid gland. Okay, we have thyroid gland in our neck region. If that particular gland has to function, then these hormones have to be produced in a normal level. Then the next hormone is adrenocorticotropic hormone, which is also known as ACTH. The function of adrenocorticotropic hormone is that we have studied that in our just above our kidney we have one more gland known as adrenal glands. Okay, in that adrenal gland there is a portion known as adrenal cortex. This adrenal cortex releases a hormone known as glucocorticoids. If this adrenal cortex has to release this hormone known as glucocorticoids, then ACTH has to come from the pituitary gland. Okay, so this hormone will come to the kidney, to the adrenal gland present above the kidney. It will ask the adrenal cortex region to release this hormone known as glucocorticoids. That is the function of ACTH hormone. Then the next hormone is luteinizing hormone. Okay, and luteinizing hormone is a hormone which is generally known as gonadotropin because it is going to affect our gonadal activity. Gonadal activity means the gonad in male is testis and gonads in female is ovary. So this hormone is going to control the gonadal activity. So they are known as gonadotropins. So the luteinizing hormone has different effect in different sex. That is, it has different effect in male and different effect in female. What are the effects in male? In male, it stimulates the synthesis and secretion of hormones called androgens, from testis. Okay, when the luteinizing hormone comes from the pituitary gland, only then the male will produce this hormone known as androgen in the testis. Okay, so we can just interrelate. One hormone comes from your brain and another hormone is only when the hormone comes from the brain, your testis or ovary starts producing another hormone. That is the stimulating effect. Okay, so in male, LH, this luteinizing hormone will stimulate means it increases the synthesis and secretion of hormones called androgens from the testis. In female, the effect is different. In female, what does it do is, it induces ovulation. Okay, ovulation is nothing but the release of ovum from the graphene follicle in the female ovary. So that function is controlled by luteinizing hormone. It also maintains the corpus luteum formed from the remnants of the graphene follicles. We all know that when the graphene follicles, when it releases egg in a female body in the ovary, if the pregnancy is happening, then the graphene follicle will convert into corpus luteum, and this development of maintenance of corpus luteum is done by luteinizing hormone, so that this corpus luteum will produce progesterone which will support the pregnancy in a female. Okay, so this is all about luteinizing hormone. Then we will move on to the follicle stimulating hormones. Follicle stimulating hormone also has it has different effects in different individuals like male and female. In male, it will regulate spermatogenesis. Spermatogenesis is a process where sperms are produced in a male. And FSH has some other property on the female. Okay, FSH, what does it do is, it helps in the development of ovarian follicles. Ovarian follicles are nothing but graphene follicles inside which the ovules will, the ovum or the egg will be present in the ovary of a female. Okay, that's all about the pars distalis region. So pars distalis region releases 6 hormones: LH, FSH, TSH, ACTH, GH and PRL, prolactin. Okay, let's move on to the pars intermedia region. Pars intermedia region of the pituitary releases only one hormone, that is melanocyte stimulating hormone. Okay, melanocyte stimulating hormone is abbreviated as MSH. The name itself indicates melanocyte stimulating hormones. That means this hormone somewhere stimulates the melanocytes. What are melanocytes? In our skin, we have special cells known as melanocytes. It actually carries melanin, that is the pigment. So this cell decides our skin color. Okay, whatever our skin color is, that is decided by these melanocytes. the amount of pigment melanin it carries actually determines our color of the skin. Okay, so that melanocyte is actually stimulated by this hormone. So MSH acts on the melanocytes and regulates the pigmentation of the skin. Okay, if there are more melanin, then the person will be dark in color. If there is less melanin content in our skin, and our skin color will be lighter. Okay, so this is all about the adenohypophysis part of the pituitary gland. Let's move on to the neurohypophysis region of the pituitary gland. Neurohypophysis region is also known as pars nervosa. Okay, here we have studied pars intermedia, pars distalis, pars intermedia. These are the two parts of adenohypophysis. Neurohypophysis is known as pars nervosa. Okay, now what are the hormones produced by them? Neurohypophysis produces two hormones, oxytocin, vasopressin. Very important question for your NEET. Okay, what are the functions of oxytocin? What are the functions of vasopressin? Oxytocin, it is generally known as love hormone, because when we feel happy or when we feel attached or close to a person, then our body will start producing this hormone known as oxytocin. Okay, when we are very happy or when we become very close to a person, then our body produces this hormone known as oxytocin. So it is generally referred as love hormone, and it also helps in the delivery. Okay, it actually contracts the uterus in a female during the childbirth. When the uterus contracts, it pushes the baby out of the vagina. So that is the function of oxytocin. Also, post-delivery, oxytocin helps to build a very close relationship with the mother and the baby. Okay, and also ejection of milk from the mammary gland is controlled by oxytocin. So oxytocin has different effects. It actually acts on the smooth muscles of our body. It stimulates the contraction of our uterus at the time of childbirth, and also milk secretion from the mammary gland. Then the hormone vasopressin. This vasopressin is also known as antidiuretic hormone. This has been asked in your previous NEET exam. Vasopressin is a hormone which is also known as antidiuretic hormone. Okay, what is the function of vasopressin? The distal tube. Okay, you have known, you have studied in your first year syllabus in kidney, that in kidney, in the nephron, you have studied proximal convoluted tube, distal convoluted tube. In the distal convoluted tube, what happens is, there is too much of water being wasted from your body. What happens is, when vasopressin are produced in a larger amount, it actually reabsorbs the particular, reabsorbs all the water that is present in your distal convoluted tube. Okay, when the reabsorption of water takes place in the distal convoluted tube, then loss of water is reduced through urine. Okay, when water is lost from our body in the form of urine, that condition is known as diuresis. Okay, this condition is controlled by this hormone known as vasopressin. It is also known as antidiuretic hormones. It reduces the amount of urine produced by our body. If this hormone is not present, then whatever water we keep on drinking, everything will be wasted as urine. Okay, it allows the reabsorption of water from the distal convoluted tube. That is the reason, it reduces the loss of water through urine. This condition is known as diuresis. So this is all about the hormones secreted by pituitary glands. Let's move on with the next endocrine gland, which is pineal gland. Okay, pineal gland is a very, very important gland because it produces another hormone known as melatonin. Okay, it is not melanin, it is melatonin. This question also has been asked in your previous NEET exam. Okay, the pineal gland, where is it located? It is located again in our forebrain. Okay, all the three hormone glands that we have studied so far, hypothalamus, pituitary gland and pineal gland, all three glands are present in our forebrain. This pineal gland produces a hormone known as melatonin. Melatonin is a very interesting hormone because it regulates our 24 hours cycle. Okay, even though nobody is coming and waking you up, you wake up in the morning, right? And night, however busy you are, you tend to sleep by 10 o'clock or 10:30, 11. Okay, that is because of this hormone known as melatonin is produced in your body. It actually controls your 24 hours rhythm. Okay, even though you feel that you can be awake for the whole day, you can't be awake. When the time becomes 10:30 or 11, 11:30, 12, you will feel like sleeping. That is because of this hormone. Morning, you will say that you will wake up by 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, but your natural clock will wake you up by 7:30 or 8 if you are a very lazy person. That is because of this hormone known as melatonin. Okay, so it is a very important, it plays a very important role in the regulation of a 24 hours rhythm of our body. Your sleep-wake cycle, when you sleep, when you wake up, that is all controlled by melatonin. This is a very important question. Which hormones controls your sleep-wake cycle? Your body temperature is also controlled by melatonin. Apart from this, they also carries out certain functions like metabolism, pigmentation of our skin, menstrual cycle in female, and our defense, that is our immunity. All these functions are controlled by this particular gland known as pineal gland. One more small information, pineal gland is a very small gland of our body. It is the smallest endocrine gland of our body. It is of a size of a small pea. Okay, the green pea. So let's move on with the next gland, which is known as thyroid gland. Okay, so all the glands that we have studied, pituitary, hypothalamus and pineal gland, they are located in our forebrain. When we talk about thyroid gland is present in this part of our body. Okay, it is surrounding to our pharynx. It is in the neck portion of our body. Thyroid gland is composed of two lobes. If you see here, this picture, this is our pharynx. That is your sound box. This is the larynx, vocal cord. Okay, this part of your neck. Okay, surrounding to your neck in this portion, you have two thyroid glands. In this part, you have two thyroid glands. One this side, one this side. Both the sides of your pharynx. Okay, this is your trachea. Okay, why this gland is very important? We'll study. This gland secretes two hormones. The hormones are tetraiodothyronine or thyroxine and triiodothyronine. Okay, the two hormones secreted by thyroid glands are, this is also very important, the hormones released by thyroid gland, tetraiodothyronine, it is also known as thyroxine. The second hormone released by them is triiodothyronine. It is abbreviated as T3. Tetraiodothyronine is known as T4. Okay, this question also could be asked in your NEET. Now, if your thyroid gland has to function properly, then this iodine is very important. Okay, that is the reason we say eat iodized salt. Okay, use iodized salt in your diet. That is because iodine is very important for the function of your thyroid gland. Now, if your food is deficient of iodine, if your food does not contain proper amount of iodine, then it will lead to hypothyroidism. Okay, deficiency of iodine in our diet will lead to hypothyroidism and enlargement of the thyroid gland. When there is iodine deficiency in your food, it leads to hypothyroidism. Because of this, your thyroid gland will become big. Okay, it will swell, and that condition is known as goiter. Okay, this is also important. Okay, when the thyroid gland enlarges, that condition is known as goiter. Then this condition is known as hypothyroidism. If generally what happens during pregnancy, a female tends to develop hypothyroidism problem, then what are the result of this hypothyroidism during pregnancy? It causes defective development and maturation of the growing baby. The baby will not grow properly. It leads to stunted growth of the baby. It is known as cretinism. This question has been asked in your previous CET NEET exam. What is cretinism? Or cretinism is related to which condition? Okay, cretinism is connected to hypothyroidism. Your thyroid gland is not functioning properly. It is releasing less amount of these two hormones. That condition is known as hypothyroidism. Because of this, it will lead, if the hypothyroidism happens during pregnancy, the baby's growth will be stunted, okay, abnormal growth, then that condition is known as cretinism. Mental retardation in the baby, the mental growth of the baby will be affected if the mother is having hypothyroidism problem. Low IQ, okay, low intelligent quotient, the baby will not be having a normal IQ. Abnormal skin in the baby, I have seen this condition. Deaf mutism, the baby will become deaf, and the baby will also not be able to talk. Mutism is nothing but the baby will not be able to talk. If the adult woman is having this problem known as hypothyroidism, it leads to the irregular menstrual cycle. Okay, you will study the menstrual cycle in detail when you come to second PUC. Okay, so hypothyroidism will lead to menstrual cycle in female, in adult women, and all these symptoms we have studied about hypothyroidism. There is one more condition. This is hypo. Hypo means always less. Okay, then the next condition is hyperthyroidism. Hyper means more, that means your body is producing more amount of thyroid hormones. Okay, which are the thyroid hormones? Tetraiodothyronine, T4 or triiodothyronine. These hormones should be produced in optimum level in our body. If it is produced in lesser amount, the condition is hypothyroidism. If these T3 and T4 hormones are produced in larger amount, the condition is known as hyperthyroidism. Again, it is a risky factor. Why hyperthyroidism happens? If a person is having cancer, then the thyroid gland, generally we know that there will be tumor formation during cancer. In such condition, there is development of any nodules in the thyroid gland, small nodules in your thyroid glands. It will lead to the synthesis and secretion of more thyroid hormones, increased thyroid hormone. Such condition is known as hyperthyroidism. Okay. Now, what are the functions of thyroid hormones? Thyroid hormones, both T3 and T4, they play important regulation in the basic metabolic rate. Why? A person who is having thyroid problem, generally they will lose weight or they will gain weight. Okay, there will be multiple problems in a person who is having thyroid problems. If you ask some elderly persons at your home, especially women, they will be having this problem. If you ask them, the symptoms, they will be able to tell you that they are losing weight or they are gaining weight. That is because actually these hormones known as thyroid hormones, they control your metabolic rate. When the metabolism is affected, that particular time, the person may lose weight or gain weight. Also, they help in RBC formation. Okay, in our body, RBC is very important. You know the function of RBC. Okay, so this if the RBC formation has to take place, then the thyroid hormones, both T3 and T4, has to be in sufficient amount. Okay, also they help in the metabolism of carbohydrates, proteins and fats. Maintenance of water and electrolyte balance is also influenced by thyroid hormones. We know what are the importance of water and electrolyte because it decides our osmotic balance. Okay, so that is also controlled by thyroid hormones. Apart from T3 and T4, thyroid gland produces one more hormone which is known as thyrocalcitonin. This is also an important question. Okay, apart from T4 and T3 hormones, tetraiodothyronine and triiodothyronine, the thyroid gland also produces another hormone known as thyrocalcitonin. Okay, this is a hormone which actually the name itself indicates thyro, it is produced by your thyroid gland. Calci, that means it has something to do with calcium. It regulates the blood calcium level. Okay, this hormone thyrocalcitonin, it actually controls your blood calcium levels. Then we will move on to another another gland which is present in our body. Another endocrine gland, it is known as parathyroid gland. Parathyroid gland actually secretes a hormone known as parathyroid hormones, which is PTH. Okay, it's very important to know all the hormones produced by different glands. Where are they present? This is your thyroid gland, it is present in the front side of your neck. Okay, whereas parathyroid glands, these glands are produced in the back side of your neck, just above the thyroid gland. Okay, the hormone produced by them are known as parathyroid hormone or PTH. The secretion of PTH is regulated by circulating levels of calcium ions. Now, PTH has only one work in your body, that is parathyroid hormones, that is to maintain your body calcium level. Okay. Now, how they maintain the body calcium level? They increase the calcium level in the blood. Okay, the major function of parathyroid hormone is to increase the calcium level in the blood. Now, how they increase the calcium level in the blood? First function they do is bone resorption, or they demineralize your bone. When the bone demineralization happens, the calcium which is present in your bone will be released to the blood. So this way they increase the blood calcium level. Second function is it actually stimulates the reabsorption of calcium by the renal tubule. You have studied in your first year class that in your renal tubule, that is proximal convoluted tubule and the distal convoluted tubule, the reabsorption of different ions takes place. When parathyroid hormones are present, they are released. More and more calcium will be taken back into your bloodstream. Okay, this way they increase the blood calcium level. The third level, way how it actually increase your calcium level in the blood is it takes up a lot of calcium from your digested food. Okay, if you are consuming a food which is rich in calcium, all the calcium that is present in that food will be taken into the bloodstream by this hormone known as parathyroid hormone. This way also they increase your blood calcium levels. Okay, so totally this hormone, parathyroid hormone, along with this thyrocalcitonin hormone, they control your calcium balance in the body. Okay, so this question will be asked, which hormones actually play a significant role in calcium balance in the body? One is parathyroid hormone, second is thyrocalcitonin released by thyroid gland. Okay, so this is all about parathyroid gland. Let's move on to the next endocrine gland of our body, that is thymus. Okay, thymus gland is present just above your aorta, just below your, just behind your sternum. Sternum is the hard bone that you find in this particular part of your body. If you touch this part of your body, you will find a hard bone. Okay, that is known as sternum. Just behind the sternum, you will find this gland known as thymus. They are located between both of your, both the lungs, ventral side of your aorta. Aorta, it's a blood vessel which carries blood from your heart to the different parts of your body. Now, thymosin, which is that hormone produced by thymus. Thymus produces this hormone known as thymosin. Okay, thymus produces this hormone known as thymosin. Now, thymosin, the main function of thymosin in our body is that they actually helps to maintain our immune system. Okay, they will help in maintaining our immune system. How they will maintain our immune system? We have studied about different WBCs. We have studied about different components of blood. Blood has three important components: RBCs, WBCs, and the platelets. Right? When we talk about WBCs, then we have different types of WBCs: neutrophil, eosinophil, basophil, monocyte, and lymphocytes. When we talk about lymphocytes, there are two different type of lymphocytes in our body: T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes. Okay, T lymphocytes are the actual lymphocytes which gives cell-mediated immunity to our body. Okay, what is cell-mediated immunity? Now imagine a bacteria is entering your body. Okay, your body knows that the bacteria is coming from some other source. Bacteria does not belong to your body. Immediately the T lymphocytes of your body goes and fights with that bacteria. Okay, so that is the function of T lymphocytes. Now, T lymphocytes, why do we call these lymphocytes? Lymphocytes means WBCs, white blood cells. Why do we call these lymphocytes as T lymphocytes? T represents thymus. Okay, T lymphocytes. Lymphocytes means it is a type of WBCs. Okay, there are different types of WBCs like neutrophil, eosinophil, basophil, monocyte, and lymphocyte. Okay, special type of lymphocyte is T lymphocyte. T represents the thymus. Now, why we call them as T lymphocytes? When this particular WBC is formed in our body, it goes to thymus gland first. Why does it go to thymus gland? Because in order to mature, okay, or that's what we call differentiation. In order to become mature, these lymphocytes have to go to the thymus gland. When the thymus lymphocytes are produced in our body, WBC is produced in our body, it goes to the where is it produced? It is produced in the bone marrow. We all know that both RBCs and WBCs are produced in the bone marrow. Once they are produced in the bone marrow, these lymphocytes go to the thymus gland. They go to the thymus gland, there they become mature. Okay, that is the reason they are known as T lymphocytes. Lymphocytes which matures in the thymus gland. Okay, for the differentiation of T lymphocytes or the maturation of T lymphocytes, thymus gland is very, very important. What happens is, thymus gland degenerates in elderly person. When we are aged, okay, or when we get older and older, the thymus gland becomes degenerated. It will get degenerated. As a result, elderly persons or people who are in their old age, they have very less immunity. Okay, because this thymus gland is very small and thymosin is produced in their body in a very, very small amount. Okay, so this is another endocrine gland which is very, very important for our body. It actually produces a hormone known as thymosin. Thymosin is very important to give immunity to our body. Then let's move on to the other gland. Next endocrine gland that we will be talking about is the adrenal gland. Adrenal gland is a gland which is present just above our kidney. Okay, so we have two kidneys, so we have two adrenal glands above each kidney. Now, if you look into the structure of this adrenal gland, the whole structure is adrenal gland. The outer yellow part is known as adrenal cortex, and the middle part is known as adrenal medulla. This part is known as medulla, this part is known as cortex. Okay, both the regions produce their own hormones, different hormones. Let's talk about the hormones produced by adrenal medulla. Okay, adrenal medulla is this part, the center part of the adrenal gland. They produce two different types of enzymes, adrenaline, noradrenaline. It is also represented as epinephrine or norepinephrine. Okay, so these are the two different hormones produced by adrenal medulla. Why they are important to our body? They are known as hormones of fight or flight. When we get scared, when we are in some emergency conditions, or when we are in pressure, then our body produces these two hormones known as adrenaline and noradrenaline. Okay, they are rapidly secreted in response to stress. If your body comes under any stress, then the body produces adrenaline and noradrenaline. These hormones increase alertness. When you see a snake, you get scared. Your body produces adrenaline and noradrenaline. You become alert. Your pupillary dilation, that your eyeball starts moving, piloerection, the hairs will start raising, body hairs, sweating. You will sweat a lot. These are the symptoms of getting scared. Okay, so why you get scared and why immediate so many reactions happen in your body, that is because when you get scared or when you are under stress, your body produces these two hormones known as adrenaline and noradrenaline, or epinephrine or norepinephrine, both are same. Okay, now it increases your heartbeat, it strengthens the heart contraction, and your rate of respiration, your breathing pattern also increases, right? You breathe fast when you are in stress. Together, adrenaline and noradrenaline, together they are known as catecholamines. Okay, together these two hormones are known as catecholamines. Okay, it also helps in breakdown of glycogen. When glycogen is a stored form of food in your body, when you get scared or when you are under any pressure, what happens is these hormones actually they break down glycogen, releasing glucose. So that will increase your blood glucose.